Have you ever had a thought that whispered, "You're not good enough," or "Why even try? You're just going to fail anyway"? Maybe it creeps in right before a big opportunity, or maybe it's a constant hum in the background of your everyday life. That voice, quiet but persistent, feeds you doubt, fear, and self-sabotage. It's not just you. We all battle with negative thinking. It's one of those silent struggles that affects more people than we realize, and yet we rarely talk about it. Whether it's overthinking every decision, assuming the worst, or constantly questioning your worth, negative thinking can hijack your potential, your peace, and your purpose. But here's the truth. Just because you think something doesn't mean it's true. In this video, we're diving deep into the roots of negative thinking, how it sneaks into our minds, and most importantly, how to kill it. You'll learn how to recognize the patterns, challenge the lies, and rebuild a healthier, more empowering inner dialogue. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending life is perfect. It's about taking back control of your thoughts so they stop controlling you. Let's get into it. Number one, understanding negative thinking. Negative thinking isn't just feeling sad or having a bad day. It's a recurring pattern of thought that pulls you down, holds you back, and filters your reality through a lens of doubt, fear, and limitation. It's the voice that tells you you're going to fail before you even start. It's the part of your mind that convinces you not to try, because trying risks embarrassment or rejection. These aren't random, one-off thoughts. They're habitual, automatic responses that creep in when you're vulnerable, when you're about to take a risk, face a challenge, or simply when life gets quiet and your mind starts to spiral. And they don't always sound loud or obvious. Sometimes they whisper, sometimes they disguise themselves as logic or realism, and sometimes they feel like the truth. But they're not. They're just thoughts, and thoughts can lie. To really start changing the way we think, we first need to understand where this negativity comes from. Believe it or not, your brain is not trying to ruin your life. In fact, it's trying to protect you. Our minds are wired with something called a negativity bias, a built-in system from our evolutionary past that helped our ancestors stay alive. Back then, being overly cautious could save your life. Noticing potential danger, a rustle in the bushes, a strange sound at night was more important for survival than noticing the sunset. So the brain learned to focus more on what's wrong than what's right. Fast forward to modern life, and that same bias now makes you focus on your flaws instead of your strengths. It makes you remember criticism more than compliments. It keeps you stuck in loops of what if I mess up instead of what if this works out. But the brain's wiring isn't the only reason negative thinking develops. A lot of it is learned. If you grew up in an environment where mistakes were punished, where you were constantly compared to others, or where love felt conditional, you might have started believing that you had to be perfect to be worthy. If you were bullied, neglected, or told you weren't good enough, those messages didn't just disappear. They settled in. They became part of your mental programming. Even society plays a part. Social media bombards us with curated lives that make us feel like we're not doing enough or being enough. The pressure to always be successful, attractive, productive, it's exhausting. And when we fall short of those impossible standards, the inner critic gets louder. So how does all this actually show up in daily life? Negative thinking wears many masks. One of the most common forms is overthinking, the endless mental replay of past mistakes or imaginary future disasters. It's lying awake at night, going over every word you said in a meeting. It's hesitating to send an email because you're afraid you'll sound stupid. Another form is imposter syndrome, that feeling that you don't deserve your success, that you're a fraud, and everyone's going to find out. There's also catastrophizing, where your mind jumps to the worst-case scenario instantly. You make a small error, and suddenly your brain is screaming that you've ruined everything. Then there's all-or-nothing thinking, where things are either perfect or a total failure. You eat one unhealthy meal, and suddenly your whole day is ruined. You get one rejection, and your brain says, "See, you're not cut out for this." Negative thinking also disguises itself as playing it safe. It tells you not to try for that job, not to ask that person out, not to speak up, because at least if you don't try, you can't fail. But that safety comes at a huge cost. Your growth, your joy, and your full potential. The worst part, these patterns often feel so familiar that we don't question them. They feel like us, but they're not. They're just habits, mental loops we've run so many times that they feel automatic. The good news, just like any habit, they can be broken. The first step is understanding that these thoughts are not facts. They are just thoughts, and you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker. Number 2, the cost of negative thinking. Negative thinking doesn't just affect your mood, it shapes your entire life. It's one of those silent forces that slowly chips away at your confidence, your motivation, and your ability to see what's truly possible for you. Over time, it becomes a filter through which you see the world and yourself, distorting reality and reinforcing a story that says you're not enough. It's too late, you can't change, you'll fail anyway. And when that story gets repeated often enough, it starts to feel like truth. But the truth is, the cost of believing those thoughts is far greater than most people realize. At the most personal level, negative thinking can wreak havoc on your mental health. It feeds anxiety, fuels depression, and creates a sense of hopelessness that can make everyday life feel like a struggle. You might start to dread the future, avoid challenges, or constantly second-guess yourself, paralyzed by fear of making the wrong move. Your inner critic becomes louder, more convincing, and more cruel. And the scariest part is that it can all happen so gradually you don't even notice it. You just wake up one day feeling exhausted, disconnected, and unsure of who you even are anymore. That's the slow erosion caused by unchecked negative thinking. But the damage doesn't stop there. It also holds you back from pursuing opportunities, both big and small. You might pass on a promotion because you think you're not qualified. You might avoid starting a passion project because your mind tells you no one will care. You might stop yourself from speaking up, reaching out, showing up, as if failure is guaranteed. This kind of self-sabotage becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't try, so you don't succeed. And then your brain says, "See, I told you." The more you listen to those thoughts, the more they shrink your world. Your comfort zone becomes a cage, and freedom starts to feel like a distant dream. Negative thinking also poisons relationships. When you constantly assume the worst about yourself or others, it's hard to trust, to connect, to be vulnerable. You might push people away out of fear of rejection, or you might tolerate toxic dynamics because you believe you don't deserve better. That inner narrative bleeds into how you show up with others. If you believe you're unlovable, unworthy, or destined to be alone, you'll act in ways that reflect that belief, even if it's not true. And then again, the cycle reinforces itself. You stay stuck in patterns that keep proving your worst fears right. On a bigger scale, negative thinking traps you in a fixed mindset. It convinces you that who you are is set in stone, that your intelligence, your abilities, your future are all limited. It tells you that failure is final, that mistakes define you, and that growth is for other people, not you. And that's one of the most dangerous lies it tells, because the truth is you are far more capable than you think. But if your mind keeps saying you can't, you probably won't. Maybe you've already lost years to these thoughts. Maybe you've let them talk you out of taking a chance, starting something new, or believing in yourself. But here's the thing. Recognizing that cost is the first step in reclaiming your power. Because once you see how much you've been giving away to those false beliefs, you can finally say, enough. It's time to stop letting fear and doubt drive your life. It's time to take the wheel back. Number 3. Recognizing your patterns. Before you can change your thoughts, you have to catch them in the act. Negative thinking can be so sneaky, so familiar, that it slips by unnoticed, like background noise you've grown used to. It becomes your default, running silently under the surface, shaping your choices and behaviors without you even realizing it. That's why the first and most powerful step toward breaking free is awareness. You can't fight what you don't see, but the moment you shine a light on those patterns, everything begins to shift. You start to take your power back, not all at once, but piece by piece, thought by thought. Awareness starts with simply observing your mind. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself when things go wrong, or even when they go right. What's the first thing you think when you make a mistake? Do you immediately criticize yourself? Do you spiral into worst-case scenarios? Or maybe you downplay your successes, telling yourself it was just luck. These patterns are clues, and the more you notice them, the more you'll start to understand the story your brain has been telling you for years. One of the best ways to do this is through journaling, not the fluffy, poetic kind, but real, raw thought tracking. Write down your thoughts when you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or stuck. What triggered them? What story did your mind tell you in that moment? Over time, you'll see patterns emerge. You'll start to notice recurring themes, phrases, and beliefs. And that awareness alone is powerful, because now you're not just reacting, you're watching. Some of the most common negative thought patterns are almost universal. One of them is catastrophizing, jumping straight to the worst possible outcome, even when there's no real evidence. You make a small error at work, and your brain immediately screams, "You're going to get fired." Your friend doesn't text back, and your mind says, "They hate you now." Another common one is black and white thinking, the belief that things are either perfect or a disaster, with no middle ground. If you didn't do something flawlessly, you feel like you failed completely. This kind of thinking leaves no room for growth, learning, or grace. Then there's mind reading, assuming you know what other people are thinking, usually something negative about you. They think I'm stupid, they're bored, they're judging me. But the truth is, most people are too busy thinking about themselves to obsess over your mistakes. And yet, we convince ourselves that we're being silently criticized all the time. Another one is labeling. When you make a mistake and then define yourself by it, you say things like, "I'm such an idiot," or "I'm lazy," instead of "I made a mistake," or "I had a rough day." These labels become identities, and when you wear them long enough, they start to feel permanent. But they're not. They're just passing judgments that you've gotten used to repeating. And once you spot them, you can begin to replace them. A big part of recognizing these patterns is learning to separate yourself from the thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are the one hearing the thoughts. Imagine that inner critic as a character. Give it a name, a voice, even a costume if you want. Call it the troll, the saboteur, or negative Nancy, whatever works. The point is to create distance between you and the noise in your head. When that voice pops up with another round of self-doubt, instead of blindly believing it, you can say, "Oh, there you are again." You disarm it by noticing it. You weaken it by naming it. It's also important to pay attention to when those thoughts show up. Do they hit you hardest when you're tired, stressed, after scrolling social media? Do they flare up when you're around certain people or doing something new? Understanding your triggers can help you be proactive. It's not about avoiding life or never feeling discomfort. It's about being prepared, knowing when your mind is most likely to slip into those old patterns so you can pause, breathe, and choose differently. Recognizing your negative thinking is not about beating yourself up for having bad thoughts. It's about becoming curious, not critical. It's about developing the skill of observation, learning to watch your mind with compassion and curiosity instead of judgment. That's the foundation of real change, because once you can see the pattern, you can break the pattern. You are not doomed to live on autopilot. You can rewire your mind, and it all starts with noticing the thoughts that no longer serve you and deciding finally not to believe them. Number 4, challenging and rewriting thoughts. Recognizing your negative thinking is powerful, but it's only the beginning. Awareness gives you the map, but the real transformation begins when you start challenging those thoughts and rewriting the narrative. It's like cleaning out a cluttered attic. You find all these dusty old beliefs. Some you didn't even realize were there. Beliefs like "I'm not good enough," "I always mess things up," Nothing ever works out for me. And once you've spotted them, you get to hold them up to the light and ask, is this really true? Where did this come from? And do I want to keep carrying this? That's the moment you start taking your power back, when you stop accepting your thoughts as facts and start questioning them like a detective. One of the most effective tools for this is cognitive reframing. It's a simple but powerful practice where you take a negative thought and flip the script. Instead of "I always fail," you shift to "I failed before, but I've also learned and grown from those experiences." Instead of "no one cares what I have to say," you reframe it as "some people might not care, but the right people will, and I have something worth sharing." You don't have to lie to yourself or pretend everything is perfect. Reframing is about finding a version of the truth that empowers you instead of limiting you. It's looking at the same situation from a new angle, a more honest, compassionate, and constructive one. To make this work, ask yourself a few key questions. When a negative thought pops up, is this thought 100% true? What evidence do I have for and against it? Is this thought helpful? Would I say this to someone I care about? Most of the time, you'll find the answer is no. You wouldn't tell a friend they're a failure, so why say it to yourself? Learning to challenge these thoughts is like building a muscle. At first, it feels unfamiliar. You might even catch yourself slipping back into old patterns. That's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Each time you stop, question, and reframe, you're rewiring your brain. You're training yourself to respond instead of react. And over time, those new patterns become your new normal. Another essential shift is changing how you talk to yourself. We all have an internal voice, and for many of us, it's brutally harsh. We say things in our heads that we'd never say out loud to another human being. But here's the truth. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you feel about yourself. So what if you started talking to yourself like someone you love? What if when you mess up you said, "That was hard, but I'm proud of myself for trying," instead of, "You're so stupid, why did you do that?" Self-compassion isn't weakness. It's one of the most powerful tools you have for long-term growth. Because shame doesn't create change, kindness does. This is where practices like affirmations and visualization come in, not as fluffy buzzwords, but as real mental conditioning. Think of affirmations as thought upgrades. They're not magic spells, but they can interrupt the noise and help you focus on what you want to believe. Saying things like, "I am capable," "I am growing," "I can handle challenges," might feel weird at first, especially if your brain is used to the opposite. But repetition matters. The more you say it, the more you hear it, and over time, the more you believe it. Visualization works the same way. When you mentally picture yourself succeeding, staying calm, showing up with confidence, you're literally training your brain to make that vision real. Your mind can't always tell the difference between what's vividly imagined and what's actually happening. Use that to your advantage. And here's the best part. This process doesn't have to be perfect or polished. You're allowed to struggle with it. You're allowed to feel skeptical. Just keep showing up. Keep catching those thoughts. Keep questioning them. Keep rewriting the script. You are the narrator of your life, and you can change the tone of the story. It might take time. It might take practice, but the shift will come. Because when you stop believing every negative thought, something amazing happens. You create space for possibility, for courage, for growth. You start showing up differently. You start taking risks, expressing yourself, trusting your instincts. You stop being your own worst enemy and start becoming your own biggest ally. That's not just mindset work. That's life-changing. Number 5, daily tools to kill negative thinking. Killing negative thinking isn't a one-time battle. It's a daily practice. Like brushing your teeth or exercising, it's something you do consistently, even when you don't feel like it, because it strengthens your mental health over time. The goal isn't to never have a negative thought again. That's impossible. The goal is to become so aware, so grounded, and so skilled in managing your mind that when those thoughts show up, they don't control you. They come and they go. You don't attach to them. You don't spiral. You simply notice, redirect, and move on. And to build that kind of mental resilience, you need two simple, powerful habits that train your brain every single day to think better, feel better, and live better. The first tool is thought journaling. Every morning or evening, take 5 to 10 minutes to dump your thoughts onto paper, especially the negative ones. Write them out without editing or censoring yourself. Get them out of your head, where they're swirling around, and put them in front of you where you can actually see them. Once they're there, challenge them. Ask, is this true? Is this helpful? What's another way to look at this? Over time, this practice will help you separate from your thoughts, question their validity, and replace them with something more empowering. You'll start to catch the lies your brain tells you and rewrite them on the spot. Next up is the power of gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most effective antidotes to negativity. It shifts your focus from what's missing or wrong to what's present and working. Every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be big. In fact, the smaller the better. A hot cup of coffee, a smile from a stranger, a moment of peace. When you train your brain to look for the good, you start to notice more of it. And that naturally weakens the grip of negative thinking. It's not about ignoring problems. It's about reminding your mind that life isn't all bad, even when it feels heavy. Meditation and mindfulness are also game changers. These practices teach you to observe your thoughts without getting swept away by them. You learn to create space between stimulus and response. You realize that just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean it deserves your attention or belief. Even 5 minutes of mindfulness a day can help you tune into your inner dialogue, calm your nervous system, and build emotional resilience. Use apps if you need to, Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer, or just sit in silence and breathe. When a negative thought comes, don't fight it. Just notice it, name it, and let it pass like a cloud in the sky. Another powerful tool is movement. Your body and mind are deeply connected. When you move your body, whether through a workout, a walk, dancing in your room, or stretching, you shift your mental state. Physical movement releases endorphins, reduces stress, and clears out stagnant energy. If you're stuck in a negative loop, move. Go outside. Change your scenery. Do something that reconnects you with your physical self. You'd be surprised how often mental ruts are really just trapped energy looking for a release. Positive inputs are also essential. What you feed your mind matters. If you're constantly consuming negativity, news, toxic content, social media comparison, it's no wonder your thoughts turn dark. Be intentional about what you consume. Listen to uplifting podcasts. Read books that challenge your limiting beliefs. Follow people who inspire you, not drain you. Fill your environment with affirmations, sticky notes, quotes, whatever lifts you up. You are not just the product of your thoughts, but also of your inputs. Make them count. Talk to someone. Don't do this work in isolation. Whether it's a friend, a coach, a therapist, or a support group, talking things through out loud can be one of the fastest ways to break a negative spiral. When you speak your thoughts, they lose some of their grip. They become real, tangible, and easier to question. Sometimes, just hearing someone say, "I've felt that too," can crack open a door to healing. You don't have to carry the weight alone. Lastly, practice self-compassion rituals. These can be small but intentional acts that signal to your brain, "I'm safe, I'm enough, I've got my own back." That might look like placing a hand on your heart and taking 3 deep breaths when you're overwhelmed, or saying a kind phrase to yourself when your inner critic flares up, like "It's okay, I'm learning, I'm human." It might mean giving yourself permission to rest, to say no, to take a break. When you treat yourself with kindness, your inner world starts to change, and the need for constant self-criticism begins to fade. The key to all these tools is consistency. You don't have to do them all every day. Start with 1 or 2 that resonate with you. Make them part of your daily rhythm. When practiced regularly, these simple habits will build a foundation of mental strength that makes it harder and harder for negative thinking to take over. This is how you retrain your brain, not with one big leap, but with daily intentional steps toward a better mindset. Number 6, becoming the boss of your mind. At the end of the day, this journey isn't about pretending you'll never have another negative thought again. It's about reclaiming control over your inner world. It's about no longer letting fear, doubt, and old stories drive your decision. It's about becoming the boss of your mind instead of its prisoner. Because here's the truth. Your thoughts are not facts. They are habits. And like any habit, they can be broken, reshaped, and rebuilt into something stronger. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not stuck. You have the ability to think differently, speak to yourself differently, and show up for your life in a way that's rooted in strength, clarity, and compassion. That version of you, the one who doesn't get pulled under by every critical voice or spiral of doubt, is already inside you. You just have to practice letting them lead. Every time you choose to challenge a negative thought, you take a step closer to freedom. Every time you pause, reframe, or speak kindly to yourself, you're changing your brain. You're reprogramming years of conditioning and proving to yourself that healing is not only possible, it's inevitable when you show up with consistency and care. And the more you do it, the stronger you get. This isn't a quick fix. It's a lifelong relationship with your own mind. Some days will be easier than others. Some days, those old thoughts will hit harder. But now you have tools. You have awareness. You have choice. So the next time that familiar voice creeps in and tells you you're not good enough, not ready, not worthy, you'll know what to do. You'll pause, take a breath, and remind yourself who's in charge. You'll stand tall in the truth that you are capable, resilient, and evolving every single day. You'll kill the noise, not by force, but by focus. And with every thought you shift, you step into a new story, one where you're no longer at war with your own mind, but leading it forward with clarity and intention. That's the power you've had all along, and now you're finally using it. Your mind, your power. If this video resonated with you, remember, you're not alone on this journey. Negative thoughts may arise, but they don't define you. With the tools and insights we've explored, you have the power to challenge and change them. If you found value in this content, consider subscribing for more insights on personal growth and mental well-being. Share this video with someone who might benefit from it, and leave a comment about your experiences or strategies that have helped you overcome negative thinking. Your story could inspire others. Thank you for watching. Remember, every positive change starts with a single thought.